A little bit to talk about. I did mention that I had a bit of a thing with one of the Countdown Dictionary Corner guests, Dr. Nayad Arif, Pakistani. Within Benazir Bhutto, look, um, I had a go at her about the hijab. And that was headline news on the BBC. The BBC actually made a little story out of that. And she was accused of doing something funny with the vaccines, but apparently she wasn't. Asim Malhotra, uh, he, bigwig in sort of anti-camp, shared the story. It was a Telegraph, poor fact-checking from them. They said she had £10,000. So, yeah, that wasn't true, apparently. I was going to talk a little bit about the, hang on. Don't mind me just walking away from the camera for 10 seconds, putting the fan off. I meant to do that. That's the good one I mentioned last year, I think. $69 at Big W. Got a big fan in it. I'll leave a description if you want one, if they still have them. Don't know whether they still have them. But yeah, there was a big drama over that woman. There was headline news on the BBC. So yeah, more countdown drama. Still don't use the main account there to promote the finals, which are on now. Colin Murray's got to do it manually. Person lost their job because of that mad woman. I might do a separate video. She's yeah, lots of things to talk about. But I was going to, in lieu of doing a Substack, talk a little bit about ANTIFA and anarchism. A lot of people see it as a cute and cuddly sort of doctrine, a horizontal organisation of society rather than vertical or top down. But the history of it is very different. It actually evolved directly out of this fascism. Fascism evolved directly out of the syndicalist movement in late 19th century. It's a direct descendant of that. And, Benito Mussolini said that every anarchist is a confused dictator. And there's sort of something to that. The Stirnerist type of anarchism, various strands. The ego is everything, and under that sort of system, no society, no anything. The ego is all there is, and that's a very dangerous sort of ideology. If everything must be subverted to your ego, then essentially you've got a society of fascists. Every person is his own dictator. That's one strand of anarchism, and I think it's a strong one. I think it explains a lot of their authoritarian tendencies, their love of lockdowns and militant transgenderism. They don't have a philosophical opposition to the police. The ACAB, that's their own slogan. There's not any sort of deep analytical philosophical basis to that. They don't like the police because the police stop them from committing crimes. That's illegalism. And that's similar to the Stirnerist ideology. Parallel to that is that there should be no laws, and you should be able to commit as many crimes as you want to satisfy your ego. The ego, your own ego, is above all else. And you can see that in the hostility to freedom. They hate freedom because another person's freedom could threaten their ego. The freedom to walk down the street or open your business during the COVID. That's a threat. That's a potential threat. If that's a disease vector, then that's a threat to their ego. And given that everything must be subverted to the ego, anything can be justified, state repression even though they claim to be opposed to the idea of the state. State repression can be justified to keep the ego in existence. So you can sort of see, just sort of peering through the blinds there, through the fog rather, you can see how anarchism and fascism can be intertwined and feed off each other. With this Stirnerist, Max Stirner, an opponent of Marx, this Stirnerist ideology, this illegalist ACAB sort of mentality, ultra egoism, super egoism, can fester into a type of fascist sentiment. Because right libertarians or right anarchists, called libertarians, Ayn Rand the type, they want dystopian oligarchy. They dislike the state, but only because if the state gets in the way of the oligarchs and the rich. They want and they do support a state, a night watchman state, where the only things that the state does are arrest people, police and prisons and border guards. That's the only functions of the state. So right libertarianism, this Ayn Rand sort of mentality, is popular amongst the American right. Very dangerous and very deeply fascistic. Probably the fascism in its purest form. Even more than social democracy. Stalin said, social democracy is objectively the moderate wing of fascism. And he was dead right. He was 100% right. Whatever you say about Joe, a lot of criticisms there, and these Trotskyists, all the British Trotskyists have aligned with Starmer. All of them. They're all with Starmer, and he's very right-wing. His manifesto was compared to Ted Heath's of 1974. And Ted Heath and Starmer have similarities that I can't discuss on the YouTube channel. This Stirnerist, illegalist, egoist, ultra egoism, this mentality is very dangerous and very similar to fascism. You can see the fascism, the sort of tenuous links there to fascism, how in untrained and unsophisticated minds, like 95% of these ANTIFA types that get around today, you can see how that can very easily slide into outright fascism. And I think that explains a lot of the COVID stuff, transgender stuff, the militant transgender stuff that they push, because the men dancing around in women's change rooms, walking around with nothing on, with everything hanging out, they're satisfying their ego. And the ego must be satisfied, and everything must be subverted. Everything must be subverted to the ego, and it's very clear that there's a link between all those three things with the Antifa people and the transgender, drag queens, and the COVID authoritarianism. So they're very dangerous people. If they align with the large-scale authorities, the WEF and other people, which I think they could do. If it's a climate lockdown, permanent lockdown, 15-minute cities, they could be the policemen. They will be recruited as the essentially the muscle, the force, like they do in ANTIFA America do for the Democratic Party. So they could be the next fascist movement, the nascent fascist movement could come from the Antifa people rather than maybe the Trump people or, Le Pen and other people like that. Both dangerous, I'd say, but people are overlook. People tend to overlook the danger from Antifa rather than the other lot. But I think both present a threat to freedom.